Alright, welcome back to another episode of The Modernist Guide. It is an album review. My first single non-metal album review. I've been trying to figure out which one I wanted to do. Then I realized to try to, keep up with the trends and stuff, it's gonna have to be Silk Sonic, an evening with Silk Sonic. And that's totally fine because this is some really good shit. There's been so many good soul fusion-esque records, or at least records of artists who are trying to take the last 40 years of black created and black influenced music from soul, funk, and hip hop, and anything Prince felt like doing at the time kind of stuff, and seeing what they can do with it. One of my favorites, well, this year is Smile with No Teeth by Genesis Osuwu, and last year was Heaven to a Tortured Mind by Yves Tumor. And the trend just keeps going. There's so many artists out this year that are just trying to use the legacy of their culture and their community and how they grew up and the music that they grew up with, and bringing it into the new millennium, or just this new decade and era. And it's all been pretty fantastic. Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak have been teasing this for about a year, maybe a little longer. And I'll admit I've slept on Anderson .Paak, and that's my fault entirely. And I know at the very least that a lot of this is still Anderson .Paak's doing, the style and the sound of this record, and it's just turned up to 12 because that's what Bruno Mars does, who I don't think a lot of people really took seriously until Uptown Funk came out, and then 24 Karat Magic. But now I think it's pretty clear to anyone who listens to this record to just never sleep on either of them ever again if you do. And that's the biggest lesson for me here. While also at the same time, personally, this album is probably not as amazing as it probably is to a lot of other people. I really enjoyed it, and there's not a lot of problems with this record. Their big ass single, Leave the Door Open, was phenomenal, and it still is, and it immediately reminded me of just a more soulful funk 70s version of Outkast, the way they play off each other's dynamic. Anderson .Paak is definitely channeling his inner Andre without sounding like a copy or even an overarching influence, but I feel like that chemistry and the dynamic is right there for both of them, and they're just really enjoying each other's energy and company, and every song just sounds perfectly well made, even if sometimes lyrically or the pacing kind of doesn't interest me, because I'm not really a huge party kind of guy or really enjoy that kind of music beyond let's have a good time. But if you get more detailed in just like the amount of pussy you're drowning in and all the drugs you're doing in order to get to even more pussy to drown in, I lose interest pretty fast. It's not, terrible. It's just not my thing. And so my rating's going to reflect that. But so you can just probably add another point on top of my rating, because that's probably the real true secret rating, I guess, because I'm just, a bland dude, really. I actually think the best song on here, though, is Flies Me. I think it shows their level of showmanship and chemistry together the best. It is just such a high, high level of glitz and glamour and over stylized, sleek perfection. There's so much funk and soul on this record, and you can talk about any artist, but I really want to give a shout out to Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, for kind of making this into a big deal in 2016 with Awaken My Love. And I know Anderson .Paak has done this kind of soul and funk stuff before, but I just can't help but be reminded of several production choices that Childish Gambino made on his record that specifically shows up here. But of course, most of this is super reminiscent of Funkadelic and Parliament, one member of which, Bootsy Collins, shows up as the guitarist, I believe, for After Last Night, along with Thundercat, and that song specifically shows, I think, everything they were trying to do with this record, even though that's one of those types of songs that I'm just kind of over. But if you took out the vocals and lyrics, I guess, and just gave me an instrumental version of it, I'd probably be obsessed with it a little bit more. But that's fine because everyone needs a fuck song if they want the fuck song, and that is the fuck song I think on this record for sure. For me, like personally, like my personal favorite is 777 because it's so upbeat and flashy, and it's kind of egotistical, but I see that more as putting on airs and putting a form of persona on it. So when you do that and it just feels that way to me, where this is clearly not Anderson Paak and Bruno Mars singing as much as Anderson fucking Paak and Bruno the fuck Mars or whatever, where it's just 20 times more of themselves, then I can get behind that a lot. And it's not like aggressive, braggadocious, like gangster rap as much as just like before gangster rap came in and what that style was in the 70s, which I just enjoy a little bit more because it doesn't feel as serious. It feels lavish and foolish in a good way and just careless and having fun and like I don't give a shit. Look at me. Look at you. Now back to me and you ain't got nothing. Who cares? And that kind of attitude and feeling I really enjoy off of a record because I can really get into the silliness of it, even if it's a song that some people do take seriously. The last two songs, Skate and Blast Off, are just a continuation of the record in every way, but more prominent as just a celebration of funk and soul and disco and just everything that black culture did in the 70s for music that I think a lot of people sometimes forget. And a lot of people just don't appreciate the level that we used to at one point. So they're bringing it back and they're bringing it back in full swing, very, very effortlessly. And I loved every second of this record, but I also kind of wanted a little bit more. It's probably a little overhyped, and that's a stupid thing to say, but I can't help it. Feels like no, this is all right, but also it should be accepted for its accomplishment and its achievement. So my personal score and what it's going to be official on this channel, if that even matters, which it doesn't, is a 7.75. But so secretly, it's probably actually like an 8.75 or a 9 for, anyone who's way more rational than I am. I like the record. I like what it stands for. I like the sounds it brings. But sometimes the lyrics just make me not want to listen to that particular song much anymore. But I'll listen to Fly As Me and 777 any day of the week. That's pretty much for this one. Thanks, like, share, subscribe, and if you don't, that's fine. Thanks for listening to me, and have a good night.